from York Simcoe.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Today my question is to the Premier. Don Chapman and Jim Chapman are the owners of Lakeview Vegetables. They are here today in the gallery to join us. They have made many efforts to reduce and conserve power. The nature of this vegetable processing work is both energy intensive and weather dependent. This year, their bill is set to exceed $1 million, up 67% since 2013. This hydro usage hasn't differed much, but the bill sure has. This year, they hired a paid hydro consultant. The consultant says that the best option for them is to actually use more hydro. Yes, more hydro.
Question.
You heard that correctly. You see, by using more hydro, they have a chance to apply to a different class of hydro user.
Crazy.
They expect that doing so might save them $100,000 a year. Premier, my constituents.
Thank you. I stand. You sit, please. Premier, Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for bringing forward that question, because I think it's very important for us to talk about what we did with the bill that passed last week, Mr. Speaker. We're actually lowering the threshold for many businesses that couldn't qualify for the ICI program.
I'm looking. Right, Jim? Finish, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I'm very happy to be able to tell them that they actually need to contact their local utility to see if they do qualify for this, because we've lowered it from 3 megawatts, Mr. Speaker, to 1 megawatt, Mr. Speaker. That's over 1,000 other businesses across this province, Mr. Speaker, that can qualify for the ICI program. And I know many greenhouse growers in the southwest of the province are very excited about this, Mr. Speaker, because they will now be able to qualify for this. And that savings, Mr. Speaker, is significant.
Answer.
It's up to a third of their electricity bill, Mr. Speaker, that they will be able to qualify for by this change that we passed in this House last week, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary, the member from Norfolk.
Well, back to the Premier, and we just heard about the pressure on the processing vegetable sector, and as the Ontario Chamber of Commerce reports, a 383% increase in hydro bills on this government's watch. When will the Premier stop signing energy contracts we don't need? The LPR2 has been suspended, but the Minister of Energy has said himself projects under an earlier program known as LRP1, that includes all the FIT programs, will still go forward. With business and residential paying the bill, when will the Premier stop selling surplus energy at a loss? When will the Premier restore basic economics, matching supply and demand, for example, and restore rational decision-making to Ontario's electricity?
Be seated, please. Be seated, please. Thank you. Oh, I know you are. Very sorry. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased to rise and, of course, answer this question, because on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we're very proud of the work that the Minister of Agriculture is doing with all of our farmers right across the province, meeting the goal of the Premier to make sure that we have 120,000 more jobs in this sector. And we're doing that, Mr. Speaker, by making sure that we can work with them when it comes to energy, Mr. Speaker, by the ICI program, for example, because we can see, Mr. Speaker, the benefits that many of these businesses can get, especially in the agriculture sector, when they reduce their bills from the ICI program. And many small farms, Mr. Speaker, will also benefit from the 8% reduction that we're going to see come January 1st. But the one thing, Mr. Speaker, that I do have to comment about, and when he talked about rational, on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we're very proud of making sure that we closed all coal-fired generation in this province, Mr. Speaker. On that side of the House, Mr. Speaker, the PC party, they are very pro-coal, Mr. Speaker. That's the only way that they can talk about getting things back to the way they were, Mr. Speaker. It's unfortunate, Mr. Speaker,